Hey there, friend. Welcome to She Said, She Said. I'm your host, Laura Cox Kaplan, and I'm really thrilled to welcome you here today. I have a great conversation coming up. It is a continuation of our collaboration series that we've been doing with She Said, She Said podcast and the Southern Sea. If you've missed any of these episodes as part of this series, I've talked to some incredible women, some incredible founders and entrepreneurs. So you'll want to go back and listen to each of these episodes, starting with Bianca Gates, who was my first guest as part of this series this year. But today I'm joined by Mariah Chase. She is the CEO of Ekyam.ai. But there are so many things that are interesting about her story. But the piece that I really want to have you focus on as you get ready to listen to this conversation is how she looked at each of the career juncture points from the very beginning of her career, right out of college, the pivot that she made at that point. She's pivoted a multitude of times. Frankly, I think I counted like 7 or 8 different pivots. And in many respects, she's pivoting into different industries. But what you see looking back is this kind of building block, one brick on top of the other, on top of the other. And as I've talked about on this podcast, my sort of vernacular of describing this is experience equity and how important it is for us to really think about our journey as equity, as part of our experience equity, where where you lived, where you grew up, the good experiences, the bad experiences, the work experiences, the skills that you learned, all of those things taken together are essentially your experience equity. Mariah illustrates this so beautifully in our conversation. She shares a tremendous amount of wisdom, not only about how she's made these pivots, but also some really deep lessons that she's learned along the way. You're going to love this conversation, so I urge you to give the full conversation a listen. It's episode 359. Again, part of our She Said, She Said podcast, the Southern Sea collaboration series for 2026. Send me your feedback once you've had a chance to listen. And if you are enjoying She Said, She Said podcast, please be sure to leave a review. I love hearing from you, and I'm always so grateful when you share some feedback with me. So be sure to do that as well. In the meantime, here is Mariah Chase, episode 359. Enjoy. Mariah, welcome to She Said, She Said.
Thanks, Laura. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, I'm really happy to have you. You, of course, are joining us as part of our She Said, She Said podcast, the Southern Sea collaboration series. In fact, I believe you're the last conversation that we have as part of this series. So I have saved maybe the best for last.
Well, let's lower expectations. Let's keep the expectations low.
I am obsessed with your story. You've had an incredible journey. And so what I'd love to do is really have you start kind of from the beginning, where you got your start and all of these interesting pivots along the way. Let's kind of start from that point.
Okay, let's start at the start, as they say. So my starting at the start, I came out of college. I was Harvard undergrad and I studied American history, which, who knows what you do with that. Um, so I thought I was either logically going to be an actress slash dancer or an investment banker.
Very
These
logical.
two paths seemed perfectly sensible to me. And I was pursuing both with complete passion and persistence, and ended up going into fashion PR. Like, I met someone at a cocktail party, and I decided at that point that I didn't want to do investment banking because I did not want to sleep under my desk. And I was not going to move to LA to pursue acting and dancing. And I met so I was waitressing. And I met this woman and she was like, you seem friendly. Why don't you do fashion PR? It seems like you need a job. And I was like, great, I am friendly and I do love fashion and I would like a paycheck. So let's rock and roll. And so my first job was at a company called Paul Wilmot Communications, which still exists today. I was an assistant. I packed up a lot of shoes and accessories into boxes and bags, which is, I think, a great thing to do when you're 21. I made $25,000 a year, and it was it was a paycheck, but it was like a ramen noodles kind of paycheck. And that was the start.
That's amazing. Okay, so you went from fashion PR to where? What was the next jump?
I continued doing fashion PR. You and I have talked about our shared love for Roger Vivier.
Right.
Um, and really, at the end of my time at Roger Vivier, when I was in house, I was the director of communications. I was 27, maybe? Is that, I don't, something like that. Uh, I thought to myself, like, the logical conclusion of this is that I'm a chief communications officer or maybe a CMO. And that doesn't sit well for whatever reason. Like, that just doesn't feel like it's gonna satisfy sort of like the fire in the belly, so to speak. And so I just jumped ship into doing business development and licensing for a small agency where I know, as in many points in my career, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. We represented design talent. And it was at a time where like design talent and sort of non-actors, writers, like where the CIAs and William Morris's ended, there was this opportunity for talent to do both licensing deals and maybe slightly atypical deals. So I represented this really phenomenal designer and talent, Christian Siriano, after he came off Project Runway. Back in the day, it was
Wow,
2008.
it's amazing.
And I did a lot of his deals, his Payless deal, his book deal. I had no idea what I was doing. Um, and so, helped him raise some capital and was really, really fun. And started to understand the world of licensing and how to generate atypical incremental streams of revenue. But that was the break from PR into something that was had a little bit slightly broader business purview.
Yeah, let's go back because I think that that particular pivot as I looked at your story is so critical because it sounds like it was the first time that you took on something where you didn't have all the boxes checked. If they had come up with a job description, you probably didn't check all the boxes that were part of that job description. So how did you position yourself for that role? Why did they hire you? What did you sort of say to them or what did you say to yourself to say, "You know what? I'm qualified enough and I can learn the things I don't know." What did that look like?
I It doesn't look like much is the really honest answer in the sense that it's, I have friends who are very thoughtful and they're very goal oriented, and I am not that. I am very ambitious, and when you are very ambitious without tying yourself to specific goals, it means you, can sort of move quickly in different directions, um,
'Cause
with
you're not wedded to a path.
yeah,
Right, is that
you can be a little impulsive, and I think I didn't realize, when I was younger that that's sort of what I was doing. I just knew I was ambitious, and if an and also I was poor, let me be clear, like, I was hungry, I had credit card debt, and so when someone offered me more money, I was like, girls gotta eat. Like and I had student debt, like I just had to pay bills and living in New York City, it's wildly expensive today. It was wildly expensive back then. Uh, and so a lot of my early job moves were financially driven. And the licensing move, the move to this small agency came with the promise. It did not end up being an actuality, but it came with the promise that I could get a percentage of the deals that I closed. Right.
Oh, interesting.
And so I thought, okay, I don't know about this closing deals thing, but maybe it could work. Like maybe, like hope is a strategy here. Hope is not a strategy, but I went with it. And that was that. So it has not a lot of the time involved a lot of checklists or a lot of like a scorecard, like the yes column, the pro and the con column. It's been more, do I have a good feeling? Can I learn? Is there upside? I'm a capitalist, like that matters to me. Uh, and like LFG.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. I love that. I love that answer, and I love the level of candor. That's so great. Okay, so let's talk about what you learned and how it helped pave the way for the next pivot.
Yes, next pivot. I I mean, in the spirit of candor, I was, not work it was my first time not working for a good person,
Mm.
and, I realized that when I was sort of already really in it, and it was going to be hard to extricate myself, and this coincided with the financial crisis of late 2007, 2008. And so everyone else at that agency was let go except for me. Lord knows why, truly. And so there were no jobs. And I felt a little trapped. Like I knew I was not working for a reputable, ethical person. And yet I needed to still maintain a paycheck, and there wasn't someplace else to go. I think sometimes when I hear other people talk about their career shifts, oftentimes sounds so philosophical, and and I'm like, "Gosh, I feel like so much of my career has just been, like, just straight up practical, like, these were the cards on the table at the time, and so this is what I felt was required, to sort of get by." As I met a really prolifically talented jeweler named Kara Ross, um, and she was looking for someone to help her grow her business. Like she was sort of the solopreneur with like a design team and a product development team, but no one was helping to run the business. Again, no clue about how to do that. But my sense was I need to get out of the situation I'm in. It's not a good situation to be in. This is an opportunity. If you talk to any of my friends or, you and I had drinks, somehow we would get onto the topic of jewelry because it is a obsession of mine. I love jewelry, and I had a couple of jewelry clients when I was in PR earlier on, and I've never lost that obsession with the category. So I was like, I love this category. This woman is super talented, and this gets me out of a bad situation. And so I just did it.
Amazing.
And so I became
Amazing.
president of this small boutique fine jewelry business that also had handbags. And it was a wild learning experience. Like everything is a wild learning
Yeah,
experience.
yeah, but there's a couple things that you said that you're so candid about it. I think an awful lot of people probably had similar experiences in that they were ambitious and hungry, but most people don't talk about that as candidly, quite honestly. I had a very similar experience and took whatever job sort of fell in my lap because it paid me more money and it was a chance to learn, right? So it's like, "Oh, okay, I'll do that. Sure, why not?" I
Yeah.
love that you said that, and I think when you say people are philosophical, my guess is they become more philosophical looking back, as opposed to
Yes.
most people really being philosophical going forward. I don't know, what do you think?
Yes, 100%, 100%. Um, and I can apply a philosophical lens of like, oh, I see myself at that age now from this vantage point, and the narrative all makes sense in hindsight. And yet, when I really put myself back in those shoes at the time, like I remember what was going through my head. And, it felt to me at the time like very practically driven decisions. And it's only now, as I have more security, that the decisions feel like less practically driven, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So interesting. Okay, take us to the next step. What happened
What
next?
did
Where did you
happen
go
next?
after?
Oh, this was a big there were kind of in my late 20s, early 30s, these like 3 big jumps that sort of got me onto a track that would last for a pretty long time. So we've done the first 2 jumps. The third was I left Kara Ross through a friend, a very good friend, college roommate. I'll give her a shout out, Alexandra Wilkes Wilson, was the one of the co-founders of Guilt. She introduced me to a friend of hers who needed a co-founder to start a digital subscription accessories business.
And this
It was
was Send the
this was
Trend,
down the
right?
trend.
Okay.
Really the worst business that ever existed, and the name maybe says it all. Um, but it was at the time when it was like the era of like Warby Parker and Fab.com and Birchbox and Rent the One Way. It was 2010. It was like the first wave of all of these sort of e-commerce, now called D2C, um, digital businesses. And there was a lot of venture capital flowing into them, a lot of like tech focused VC, which has since completely moved out of that market. But at the time, it was flowing in. And I remember someone had said to me, and I think I said this when I was speaking to Lydia at the Southern Sea. And I don't remember who said this to me, but they said, if you can't bet on yourself, who can you bet on? And that was a philosophical moment that I remember at that point in time. And I was still really poor. And I knew that I was going to stay like really poor if this didn't work out because, startups don't pay anything, really, relative to like a corporate job, at least back in the day. Now they pay more. Back in the day, they didn't. Um,
Well, certainly in the early days, right? When you're making those first initial investments, right? I
you
mean,
haven't
it's
raised any
really
capital. Like
mhm.
we had raised like $0 of capital. And then once you have raised a little bit of capital, it's this race to get as much done before you've got to raise again. And so you need to make that capital last as long as possible, which is why people get equity, right? You don't get paid the cash, you get paid the equity. Again, this has changed a little bit to be more like you get cash and you get equity sort of situation.
So you can
But
survive.
yeah, I mean, just to really attract, I think the market has shifted like to really attract exceptional talent. Um, but so I thought if I've been in PR, working for another entrepreneur, helping Christian Siriano build his brand, and I've built equity for others. Can I build it for myself? Right? I don't want to have a persona. I don't want to be known. I don't want that, but can I invest in myself sort of the way that I've helped others invest in themselves? Let me try that. And that was a philosophical moment at the grand old age of like, I think 32.
Yeah.
And so jumped into the fire.
Yeah. I love that. I love so how long did that last? Because
That
I
was
know that
brief. That
yeah.
was brief. It was 2 years, 2 plus years before we sold to QVC. And then I stayed at QVC for just under a year.
But you did manage to sell it. I mean, even though you talk about it not being a great business model, you did manage to get it to the point of being able to sell it, which is a pretty incredible accomplishment.
Laura, it was a miracle. I mean, I will say that like I've been through 2 exits, both of them felt like miracles, right? They're they're really, really hard, at least from they require a tremendous amount of work. There's a lot of stakeholders with different points of view, different needs, different wants. But, you know, it to my now co-founder, who's my current business's CTO. He was our head of technology at Send the Trend, and he built a recommendation engine that was really ahead of its time. And, you know, my hindsight is that QVC really wanted that recommendation engine to
Mhm.
power some of QVC's business. But, everyone made money. It wasn't a huge exit by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a profitable exit, and it just felt miraculous, honestly.
Yeah. So you went from there into more of a corporate role, right? Was that
No.
because Oh, you didn't? Okay.
No, I decided to do it again.
trouble keeping track, to be
I
honest.
mean, talk about, like, the career of 80, like, ADHD. I mean, it's literally
Love
like a
it.
oh,
But it's
man.
all, it's one brick, and I could absolutely see the growth at each level, looking back at what you've done, but I did have trouble keeping track of which brick was which. So
You're
what
kind.
came
You're
next?
kind. So I took this was the first time I'd ever had a small nest egg and that I could take a few months and not have a steady paycheck. So I consulted for after I left QVC, I consulted for a few businesses and I talked to it. I would talk to anyone who would talk to me. I called it my talking tour. I met with investors, I met with other entrepreneurs, I met with anyone and was just sort
You
of
have a
seeing
sense, though, Mariah, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Did you
no,
have a
of course.
sense as you were doing this what you thought was likely to be next, or were you just literally like white sheet of paper rather, just sort of like, I'll just talk to anybody, anything that comes that sort of sparks my attention, or did you have sort of a, here's some things that I think that
No, I'm
might be a
much more
good.
opportunistic. I'm much more like, what are things that are potentially available to me? And then what do I have a bad feeling about? And I'm going to avoid those like the plague. And I've learned that in hindsight. Like sometimes, instinct and intuition uh, is a big deal for me. I know I like to marry the data with the intuition and the instinct. That's like the holy grail. And I've learned over time that sometimes I don't necessarily have a positive instinct for something and it can be really great. But if I have a negative instinct about something, it is never good. Right. So, but I tend to be more opportunistic and evaluate and sort of pressure test different things that could be available to me. But I consider it was a time of learning. I was really just learning because when you're in a startup and you're going through an M&A process, and then once we got to QVC, we were incredibly busy still. It was not like same thing when, we sold the next business to Walmart. Like it's not like you chill out. Um, so I was picking my head up and sort of seeing like what's happening in the market, like what's going on. Um, and I came across through a friend this opportunity that became the next 9 years of my life. And probably, actually, not probably, definitely my favorite thing I've ever done. Um, oh, yeah, it was so, so hard and also so joyful. And I so much love for what we built and the customer and what the mission, the team we were all on together. It was not without like massive bumps and potholes in that road. Like, but I have a lot of love for it. But
And
so
this
I
is Ella this is
this is ELOQUII.
Eloquy.
This is
Yeah,
ELOQUII.
yeah.
Yeah. So
And
that
and
one,
and for anyone listening who might not know, what is Eloquy?
ELOQUII is a trend right apparel and accessories brand for women sizes 14 and up. So you can think of it maybe a bit like a Zara meets J. Crew. Um, with it has a definite design direction, but it's e-com and wholesale apparel, some footwear, accessories. Mhm. Yeah.
And it was owned at the time by the Limited Company or
It
acquired by the
was
Limited Company?
so that's you've done your research. It was originally started by the Limited to capture customers who are lapsing out of the Limited's core size offering. So the Limited
Gotcha.
stopped at a 12. And so the Limited, if you remember, was known as like a mall-based suiting brand, right? So you needed a good suit for an interview and you didn't want to go to Ann Taylor, you went to the Limited. And they were losing customers who maybe were like a 10 on top of 14 on the pants. And so that was the original ideation. And then the Limited, this was 2011, the Limited at the end of 20 or the early 2012 just shut it down. Like they planned it for a year, they way overbought inventory, way overplanned it, and then shut it down. And it basically became an asset, like a stack of paper that sat on the CFO's desk. I came on board after that asset had been purchased for pennies on the dollar. and they were looking for a CEO, and it was not back in business yet. There was people were starting to like these some of the original team members were starting to put, plans back in place and production plans back in place, but there was capital that needed to be raised, there was more team that needed to be hired, and this deeply interested me. Like, I was really interested in this market. I thought once I started to do research on it, I thought, "Why on earth hasn't everyone been talking about this? Um, why have I never understood it?" Like, I have family members that are this customer, and now things are really being illuminated for me. Like, I never understood why they always wore the same thing and why other women in my family change their outfits all the time. Oh, maybe it's because they didn't have access, right? Maybe it's because they didn't have things to buy. So I I couldn't stop thinking about it. I just couldn't stop thinking about it. I'd never done apparel before. I'd never been a CEO before. So this like fits the profile of like I have no clue what I'm doing. And I'm gonna like raise my hand and be like, please let me do this. So I did.
Yeah. Why did you, what did you say to yourself in terms of thinking about your preparation for this role? Were you like, you know, pitching yourself based on what you had done and sort of here's some evidence of my skill set and why I believe I would be good in this role even though I've never done it before? Or how did you think about it and how did you pitch to others to convince them that you were the right person?
I have never done a good job of pitching others, convincing them that I was the right person in part because it wouldn't necessarily be believable in this sense that like I don't have the experience. I don't have the creds, right? If you are looking for the person who's done it before, you're not going to choose me. What I did have in that moment though was that I was one of the because it was so early, I was one of the few co-founders who had exited a business profitably. And so that opened a lot of doors. I mean, honestly, it probably shouldn't have, but it did. It opened a lot of doors that put me in conversations where I just I think my, like, biggest, um, move was that, like, I was really excited and interested, and
Passionate about the
passionate.
customer and the topic and yeah,
Yeah, and I
interesting.
had, like, good references, and I you know, people would say that "Oh, Mariah, like, she works really hard. Like, she's gonna do you right. She might not be, like, the perfect candidate, but, you could probably do a lot worse." Like, I could imagine someone saying something like that, um, and I think, honestly, again, the practicality of it was they needed someone. They were desperate. I was there. Like, there was time was this incredible forcing function. And there's this person who's like, "Oh my gosh, I would love to do this. I was the pick me girl, right? Like Meredith Grey from Grey's Anatomy, like pick me." And they did.
It's amazing. Okay, so you were there for 9 years. This was a 9-year stretch.
9 year stretch.
You got this company back on its feet, you grew it, then it was acquired or you sold it to Walmart, correct?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
and
yeah.
then you went in-house as a corporate exec for the first time, right?
Yes, since QVC. And I just wanna, you know, clarify and, maybe add color, like, I was a part of a team that did this. I think that ELOQUII was the first time in my career that I understood, like, the teamwork makes the dream work. Like, my colleagues on the leadership team, some of whom I hired, some of whom I joined as the CEO, over those 9 years, I was blown away by the caliber of their talent, what they taught me. Like, I was a student of everything because they were subject matter experts of merchandising, of marketing, of supply chain, of ops, of technology, of finance, of HR. Like it was like going to the Les Wexner School of Retailing or the Mickey Drexler School of Retailing. And I will be forever grateful for that team because they made me look so much better than I was. And if you had anyone here right now, they would 100% agree with that statement. Um,
But
but
you
for
learn so much from them. It sounds
oh
like
my God, I learned
you're
so
so
much.
you have this voracious curiosity, and you learned so much from these people who you knew had experiences and skill sets that you didn't have, which is, such an important data point to focus on.
They were, I mean, I think I just the way I drive my co-founder crazy now. Like, I know that they had moments like, "Is she really wasting my time asking me this question again? Like, how does she not yet understand this very simple equation?" But yet, that is one thing I will say I will give myself for better or worse. Like, I have no shame about asking. When I don't understand something, I will ask it until I am blue in the face, you are blue in the face, until everyone understands it in as simple a way as possible. Um, and sometimes that takes time.
Yeah.
So we sold the business to Walmart, and now have gone from being the smallest minnow in the world of retail, right, to being a part of the biggest whale, the biggest company in the world at that point in time. Amazon just eclipsed it from a market cap perspective, I think just like 3 weeks ago. Um, but It was I think we all knew it was gonna be a big shock. It was definitely a big adjustment, another huge learning curve to operate this very for Walmart, this very, very small business unit, trying to also build another business for Walmart. That was sort of the point of the acquisition. Let's build a brand that is that references ELOQUII, right? But it is specifically for a Walmart customer. How do we think about that for Walmart operating within the compliance and the compliance framework that is the Walmart, um, that is Walmart, that has to be Walmart, specifically from a finance, HR, DevOps, InfoSec perspective. But when you think about finance and HR, those are your those are your buckets of resources, your people and your money. And so those reported immediately got functionalized and reported into Walmart with a dotted line to me. That was tricky to navigate. That was
Yeah.
tricky to navigate.
What was the biggest challenge that you faced during that period and sort of navigating that and navigating a very different environment?
Oh, wow. I think this requires maybe a margarita.
Oh, that's okay too, but it is early in the morning
The
here.
record, um, I there were a lot. It's hard to pick the one. I think one thing that comes to mind was both was stakeholder expectation management. And what I mean by that in very, brass tacks terms is that our customers, when news broke that we had sold, had felt like the fear of God put into them that all of a sudden our clothing was going to be like Walmart clothing, that it was going to change what we sold. It was going to change the quality, that it was going to change our customer, our relationship with her was her eloquy, right? She felt a pride of authorship and when she loved us so hard. And when she was mad at us, she took us down. I have a lot of respect for that, right? She keeps you
Wow.
really, really honest.
Yeah.
But it took 6 to 9 months of continuing to show the customer that nothing was changing from a product and a brand perspective. We weren't changing our manufacturing sources. We weren't changing the way we did our photo shoots or our models or our designs. Like, there was no way to just tell her. We had to show her, and that took time. And that period of time of we just started saying literally in social media, like, "Don't listen to us, just watch us. Just
Yeah.
we're sick of telling you."
Did that take convincing folks, executives internally about the importance of staying the course and being really true to the customer when, execs are part of this very, very large organization? Did you have to sort of win over hearts and minds both externally and internally?
Luckily, no.
Oh, that's good.
Walmart was, uh, I think, quite logical in that, like, what's the upside for them in changing like, they part of the reason they bought us, like, my understanding is that they loved how we talked to the customer, how we designed for the customer, how we marketed to the customer, how we developed this feedback loop relationship with the customer, and, they didn't wanna change that. In fact, they wanted to learn from it. So, that was easy. We were not trying to convince sort of the powers that be, let us keep doing these crazy, wide calf, pink glitter, 4-inch stiletto, over the knee boots. It was because those ended up selling really, really well because the customer couldn't get it anywhere else in the
Sure.
market. Um, like, who doesn't need a pair of those?
Of course.
It was more sometimes we wanted to do things from a business perspective that, Walmart Global may have had a position on that if we had not been a part of Walmart Global, like, it wouldn't have mattered to us.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So interesting. All right. Take us to the next juncture. You left. I don't recall exactly. Did you just exit the company or
I
was the
did.
company sold? You just exited.
I left my last day was Black Friday of 2022, and, uh
How did you decide to leave? Like, what was the process that you went through to decide, okay, it's time to do
yeah,
something else? And did you
yeah.
have the something else already in mind, or did you leave without the something else figured
No, of
out?
course, I had no clue. I had no
I
clue.
figured.
I had no
I
clue.
was guessing at that.
I had absolutely
I
no
love
idea.
that.
I had a big, trip to Africa planned. That was my I knew that that was going to happen, and I was very excited about that. The you know, I was burnt out is the and if you've is the honest answer, and if you've experienced burnout, it takes a toll mentally, it takes a toll physically, and I think there were probably other members of the team that were burnt out, and it was, um there were a lot of really stressful, really intense periods, and, when you a lot of people will say, "Oh, after you get bought, you can, like, kinda take your foot off the gas and you can kinda, like, coast." And we weren't worrying about cash anymore, and that was a big relief being a part of the Walmart organization, but it did that period of time came with its own extremely intense stressors, and I needed a break in a really, really big way. Um, and so I resigned as my earnout wound up. And it was uh, in some ways joyful, um, because I was like, oh, I have all of this like to look forward to. And also, I'll tell you, when I got off that last call on Black Friday, I wept like a small child, just wept. And it still makes me emotional to think about because it was such a big, important part of my life, and I have such strong positive feelings about the team and what we were doing together, but I it was time.
Yeah.
It was really time for me. But of course, I had no clue what I was gonna do. I was like,
Yeah.
"I'm gonna go see some gorillas in Rwanda," and that is definitely happening.
Okay, you did that, and then you made yet another really significant pivot into a different area of focus. So now you are firmly in the AI world. You're back in a startup,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So talk about that, where that opportunity came from, how you decided that this was the pivot that you wanted to take on next.
Yeah. Very briefly, I thought I was going to go run another consumer business, right? I really thought that, well, I've done this now and I've made so many mistakes. Let me help another business like leapfrog over some of these mistakes. And I couldn't find something that like lit my fire in a way that you need to because it's always so hard, right? Um and the head of technology from Send the Trend, he had gone on to like lead a division of QVC's technology for 6 years, CTO of 1-800-Flowers, and then global head of technology for Tory Burch. So
Wow.
he just like his career was just went, up and to the right. And he contacted me and he said, I'm leaving Tory. This is spring of 2024. I'm finally going to build something. I've had enough. I've got all these technology battle scars. And I'm thinking of a way to solve these because AI has made it possible. Do you want to join? And I was like, definitely not. Absolutely not. That sounds horrible. But,
This
but
was like the first time that you're like, "Okay, no." Right? This is a clear no.
because my mind was like, I can't do technology. I have no idea. I mean, CTOs have reported into me in the past, and I remember my touch bases with them were like me speaking English and them speaking, I don't know what language. I have no idea. T- Um, so, but I know Abby, my co-founder, and he so brilliant and such a creative problem solver. And I just was like, whatever he's doing, I need to keep tabs on this. And so I started advising him and, was like, talk to this lawyer and, make sure you got an accountant and all these things. And then about a year ago, just over a year ago, I was like, what am I doing? Like, this is so interesting. And what an incredible opportunity to learn. And I might be helpful. Let's hope, like from a business perspective. And okay, let's do it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So talk about the company. Talk about what Ekyam?
Ekyam, yes, you pronounced it correctly. Thank you.
Ekyam.ai. What does
Yeah.
Ekyam.ai do, and what are you sort of focused on at this moment? We are in this complete just explosion of all this amazing technology and all of this development. A lot of people are terrified about what does it mean for jobs? What does it mean for the future? All these things, but it is really exciting.
We're
Talk about
excited.
what's happening and what the company does. What role does it play
Yeah.
within the AI universe?
It feels like the technological wild, wild west, what you're
Right?
talking about, sort of this
Yeah.
like literally it feels like we're breaking, this like going the speed of light every single day. And since the Southern Sea, Claude Goward came out, right, which has changed the game again. That
Yes.
10 days ago was Perplexity announced Perplexity Computer. Anyway, we are an AI native inventory data platform. So
Okay, what does that
we
mean?
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about it. So we serve retailers and brands, whether it's home goods or accessories or beauty, or think about any business that sells a good, right? Has stuff. They have inventory. That inventory data is just information. It lives in a lot of different places for a business. It lives in their e-commerce platform. They have stores or point of sale system. It might live in their ERP or QuickBooks if it's a small business. It might live in their 3PL where they ship the goods out of, and it definitely lives in Excel. For every
Mhm,
business, it lives in Excel.
mhm.
And all of those different places where the data lives, they speak different languages. And so when you try to unify that data, it's a mess. It's a real mess and it's costly, time consuming, takes a number of engineers. Um, and we have a data platform that unifies and reconciles, basically takes all of that information and puts it into one shared single vocabulary that businesses can use, gives them total visibility to all of that information, a single source of truth, i.e., they know what to trust, And then, most importantly, as we think about AI, like, so our platform is built using AI. But when you think about what different AI applications, agents need, they need that shared single vocabulary that's been enriched with like context and meaning. It's called grounding and reasoning and sort of like AI terms, semantics, um, in order to act accurately, right? Like we've all probably had the experience of the really high confidence hallucination that ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini gives you, and you're like, that's like 72% right, but 28% so deeply wrong. But it
Right.
sounds so confident. Um, because in the world of AI, we're moving from deterministic outcomes to probabilistic outcomes. And so part of what we're able to do is limit the range of those probabilistic outcomes so they make sense for the vertical we're in, which is retailers and brands. So we're unifying your data, we're giving it a shared single vocabulary so agents can reason over it. And then we also build different agents
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. And looking back at your whole story, as you sort of think about this, again, like you can get a little more philosophical as you're looking back. Maybe as we sort of bring this to a close, what would you give the listener who, for the most part, ranges in age from, a woman in her 20s to somebody in her, well beyond, well beyond that, but especially women who are mid career and maybe facing some of these juncture points in a job that she once loved, doesn't love anymore, has no idea how to sort of pivot and turn into something else. Maybe just some closing words of advice for how to think about those pivots, especially as you look back on your own career. And I have this term that I often use called experience equity, where it really is about collecting equity, building it. It's your skills, it's where you grew up, it's the good experiences you had and the bad experiences you had. All of it is basically equity that you can then
Yeah.
deploy in these different ways.
Yeah.
Maybe give us some sense of how you would advise her to think about this.
Um, I would say it's for me, it's been a combination of a few things, right? And this has worked for me. And if it's useful to a listener, then awesome, which is one, um, be open minded and optimistic, right? Like it might not look like you think it's supposed to look like. And that could be the best thing that ever happened to you. Like, I thought I was going to go run another consumer brand, and nope, that's logically what should have happened. But nope, it's totally fine. Um, Second, I would say be opportunistic. Really like mine your universe, mine your contacts, be a networker, really trying to figure out what are all of the potential opportunities that are in front of me. Can I get really smart on them? I think I was talking to someone this past weekend, and she was saying that she really wants a full-time job and she's been doing fractional work. But one of those fractional positions could become your full-time job for sure, right? So it's not necessarily one or the other. So maybe I think these are all OP words, like be open-minded, be optimistic, and be opportunistic. And lastly, like it's never perfect, right? No matter which road you choose, there are going to be massive problems, like almost inevitably, because that's life and we're human. That's fine. Like
Yeah.
that's fine. The only way, what's the only way out is through. The only way to go is like you just got to do it. And so choose the thing that you're most excited about that, is going to not going to keep you up at night in a bad way, but in an excited way.
Love that. I love what you just said. It also occurs to me that the flip side is probably also true. It's probably not 100% bad either. There's always some value or something you can learn from every situation, even if it's like kind of crappy and not your favorite, not your favorite job, but there's something you can get out of that and learn from it, even if it's what not to do going forward potentially.
Yeah, I worked with we had a CTO at ELOQUII who during the interview process, he said something that I use, I say over and over again to this day, which is, I asked him, like, what are the things you hate or you don't like about being a CTO? Like, what are the things that you literally never want to do again? And he listed a couple of things, and it's always typically like something administrative. And he's like, but you know what, Mariah, that's what I get paid to do. The other stuff I would do for free. Right? The rest of my job, I would do without unless, I have to get paid because, like, I have a family to support, but, like, I would do it for free. I love it. This stuff, I consider it the stuff I'm getting paid for. So,
Beautiful
suffice
way to
to
look at it.
say, yeah, like, any road you take is going to have pros and cons, puts and takes, like, it's inevitable. Don't let that deter you.
Love that. I have loved this conversation. I am so excited to share it with listeners. Thank you so much for the time today. I'm really grateful.
It's been so fun. Thank you, Laura. Thanks for having me.